What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with my hands-on and first impressions video of the OnePlus Nord N30 5G. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, the OnePlus Nord N30 5G is one of the latest affordable 5G devices from the company. And I'd like to thank OnePlus for being kind enough to send this phone out to me to cover here on the channel. Now, this phone is the successor to last year's OnePlus Nord N20 5G, and I will be comparing this phone to that phone in a future video. Now, this device is being offered factory unlocked for just $299, and it's also being offered at Metro by T-Mobile and regular T-Mobile. Now, at Metro, you can get it for $279, and then at regular T-Mobile, you can get it for $264. Now, keep in mind, though, that especially at the carriers, they do tend to offer some really generous discounts, especially if you're switching in from a different carrier, so definitely take a look and see what different promotions are being offered. But before we get too far into things here with the OnePlus Nord N30 5G, let's see what all comes included in the box. So here's the box, you can see right there, N30. We get some literature, a USB-C cable for charging and data transfer, and we have a 50-watt SuperVOOC fast charger. Now, it's especially impressive to see this fast charger included and the fact that it is 50 watts. 50 watts is very fast, so you're going to be able to easily recharge this phone very rapidly. Now, with the OnePlus Nord N30 5G, we're getting a very large 6.72-inch display. Now, this display is IPS LCD, and it features a 120Hz refresh rate. So a really fast and smooth refresh rate here with the phone. And really, just by looking at the screen here on the device, you wouldn't think that this is an affordable smartphone. You'd think it's a lot more expensive than it actually is. Now, this display is 1080p. We're getting a PPI of 391. And we're getting a 20:9 aspect ratio, so a more narrow but taller form factor here with the device. In addition to that, we're getting a 91.4% screen to body ratio, so really small bezels all throughout. Now up top here, we do have a hole punch for the front facing camera, and that front camera is 16 megapixels. Now stay tuned for my full review video of this device, which will be out in the future, as I'll be showing you a variety of different photo and video samples from all the various cameras. Now internally here with this device, we're getting 128 gigs of storage, along with microSD card expansion. So 128 gigs will certainly get you very far. That's a lot of storage overall. And then having the ability to add in a microSD card gives you even more flexibility. So if you do find yourself filling up the internal space here on the phone, you can always offload photos and videos, for example, onto that SD card. But I think for most people, 128 gigs will be plenty, and you'll have no issues with storage. Now with the OnePlus Nord N30 5G, unfortunately there is no wireless charging, but this phone does feature a fingerprint sensor on the power button. So let's try that right now, and you can see that's very fast and responsive. Let's try that one more time. There we go. And in addition to that, this phone does support Face Unlock. So I do appreciate that we have multiple methods here for accessing the device. Now on the back of the phone, we have a pretty interesting camera setup. It almost looks like there's two cameras, but there's actually three of them. Now the main camera is 108 megapixels, which is quite a high megapixel count, especially for a phone in this segment. We also have a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera and a 2 megapixel macro camera for close-up images. And this phone does support portrait mode with both the front and rear cameras, and we're getting 1080p video recording with the front and rear cameras as well. Now here's how things look on the camera app on this device. This is the main rear camera. Then from here, we can go over to the More tab to access the macro camera, and with macro we can get very close up and have things be in really good detail. Then we can exit out of here, head over to portrait mode, and then you get those nice blurred out backgrounds. And you even have the ability to pick the amount of blur, so if you want more blur you can do that, or less blur you can also make that adjustment. Heading out of there, we can flip around to the front-facing camera and take portrait selfies, so you can get that blurred out background here as well, or if you want to, you can take standard selfies too. So there are a lot of different options and abilities here in this camera app. Now with the OnePlus Nord N30 5G, there is no telephoto camera. However, if you do want to zoom in, the phone does feature digital zoom, which you pretty much find with any smartphone that doesn't have a telephoto camera. However, one thing that especially makes this phone great when it comes to that is that since the main camera is 108 megapixels, zooming in with that camera gives you a much better experience. So you can see, for example, right here, you have the option to zoom in at 3x, and while all it's actually doing is just cropping in on the image, since the megapixel count is so high here in the phone, your photos are going to look a lot more clear. so that's something worth considering. Now with this device, we're getting 8GB of RAM, along with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 695 5G processor. Now as the name of the processor and the phone itself implies, this device does feature 5G connectivity. Now in 2023, I do think you can still get by with just 4G LTE, but at the same time, it's still great having a device that does support your carrier's latest and greatest network. And of course, as we get further into the future, 5G is going to become more and more relevant. Now, in addition to offering 5G connectivity, the processor that we're getting here with the phone is actually very capable. Now, of course, compared to a much more expensive device like a $1,000 smartphone, you're not going to be getting performance nearly at that level, but at the same time, I feel like this phone will get the job done for the majority of people out there. Now, navigating around the operating system is a very smooth experience, so that's great, but beyond that, general usability of the phone runs very smoothly as well. So if you're someone that, beyond just doing phone calls and text messages, likes to browse the web, go on social media, also get a little bit of work done, maybe send some emails here and there, then this phone will be great for you. On the other hand, if you're someone who's constantly on your phone, maybe you're always doing high performance gaming, or you're doing other very demanding tasks such as video editing, then you might notice some frustrations as far as the performance of the processor goes. But again, for the majority of people out there, I think you're gonna be very impressed with this device. And certainly for what it's being offered at, this phone is a great value when it comes to the price to performance ratio. Now I did run a benchmark test using Geekbench 6, so what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then compare your scores to these scores to get a better idea of how the OnePlus Nord N30 5G compares to what you currently have. Because who knows, this phone could be slower than your current device, or it might be a lot faster and perform a lot better. But you can see here the scores right there, and overall, I feel like these scores are very impressive and do reflect upon so far how this phone has been. You can see we have a single core score of 899 and a multi-core score of 2045. Now I'm sure we can all agree that having great battery life is very important, and with the OnePlus Nord N30 5G, you are covered here with a very large 5000 mAh internal battery. Now as I mentioned earlier on in the video, this phone does support 50 watt Super VOOC fast charging, so not only do we have a large battery here at the phone, but you will be able to recharge that battery very quickly. And this phone probably features one of the fastest rates of fast charging that I've found with really any affordable smartphone. Typically, even ones that you can fast charge kind of max out at 25 watts. So the fact that this supports 50 watts is really cool. Now the software with this device is Android 13, and it does feature OnePlus's skin. Now overall, OnePlus has pretty much taken stock Android and added in a lot of extra bonus features, but at the same time, there are many aspects to this operating system, or at least the skin on the operating system, that are a lot different from stock Android. Now a lot of it is visual, so if you are used to using an Android phone already, you probably will get the hang of this pretty quickly. But on the other hand, if you are using an Android phone right now and you're expecting everything to be exactly the same here with the Nord N30 5G, then just know that you will have to get slightly used to it. But like I mentioned a second ago, the good news is OnePlus has added in extra bonus features on top of Android, so a lot of the changes they made are actually good changes. Now another awesome thing about this phone is that it does support NFC. Now if you're not familiar with NFC, that's technology used for mobile contactless payments, to use your phone to do tap and pay, and this phone has that. So if you are someone that likes doing that, then just know that you can do it here. And I know for me personally, with any phone I test that has NFC, I'm always using it to make payments. It's very convenient. Another awesome thing too about this phone is that it does feature stereo audio. Now stereo audio is a feature that you don't find quite as much with phones in this segment, so I'm glad it's here. But essentially, you're not only getting audio out of the main speaker in the bottom here, but you're also getting audio out of the earpiece when doing things like watching videos or listening to music. So by having stereo audio, you're getting much richer, better sounding audio from the device, and of course it gets a lot louder and clearer too. So overall, that's an excellent feature and typically something that you only find with more premium devices. But let's now take a closer look at the hardware of the OnePlus Nord N30 5G, now that we've gone over many of the various features and highlights of it. Now on the left side of the phone, we have the slot for the microSD card and SIM card. We also have volume up and volume down. Now another thing to keep in mind too is that this phone is made completely of plastic, besides the display, which is made of glass. That being said though, I feel like OnePlus's approach here actually makes this phone feel decently premium, and it certainly doesn't feel cheap by any means. But on the right side of the phone, we just have the power button, which doubles as the fingerprint sensor. Then up top here, we have the noise canceling microphone. And then on the bottom of the device, we have the 3.5mm headphone jack, microphone, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, and the main speaker. And then on the back of the phone, we have that triple camera setup, the flash, and OnePlus logo, and that's pretty much it. Now I will say though, I'm not a huge fan of this glossy back on the phone. As you can see, it's already picked up a lot of fingerprints. So if you are someone that finds fingerprints on the back of your phone to be a bit annoying, then just know that they will be prevalent here. Typically, I prefer smartphones to have more of a frosted back instead, but I don't feel like this is necessarily a deal breaker. Overall, for any phone that's made of plastic, I think you should pair it up with a case anyway. So if you're putting a case on this phone, then it doesn't really matter that the material on the back can get fingerprints because you're not going to be directly touching that material. But overall, I'm very excited about the OnePlus Nord N30 5G. I think this phone is an excellent, affordable option, and I'm certainly looking forward to spending more time with it and creating many more videos about it here in the channel. But definitely stay tuned for that content, and let me know what you think of this phone in the comment section below. But thanks again OnePlus for sending this phone to me, and with all that said, I will see you in the next video. Take care everyone.